The rain had just begun to fall outside the quiet cafe in downtown Boston when a single, careless decision set two very different lives on a collision course that neither of them would ever forget. What started as a harmless moment of curiosity would soon expose hidden brilliance, buried pain, and a truth so powerful it would humble wealth itself. In that small corner of the United States, beneath flickering lights and the steady tick of a chess clock, destiny was already moving its pieces. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that talent can be found in the most unexpected places, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that are still searching for hope. Richard Cole had everything money could buy. At 52, he was one of the most successful investors in the country, a man whose name appeared in financial magazines and whose quiet presence could shift markets. Yet despite the penthouses, the luxury cars, and the invitations to exclusive events, his life felt hollow. Chess had once been his refuge, a game his late father taught him during difficult childhood years. It was the only place where Richard felt truly challenged, truly alive. That evening, seeking shelter from the rain, he stepped into the modest cafe not for food, but for silence. Across the room, Eleanor Price moved swiftly between tables, balancing plates and wiping counters with practiced efficiency. At 28, she carried herself with quiet restraint, her brown hair pulled back into a simple ponytail, her uniform faded from years of use. Most customers barely noticed her, and she preferred it that way. What they could not see was the mind that never rested, the calculations always running beneath the surface. Eleanor had once been a chess prodigy, dominating state tournaments as a teenager, until life intervened with illness, debt, and responsibility. When her mother fell sick, dreams were set aside without ceremony. Richard noticed the chessboard near the window, a decorative piece the cafe owner kept for customers. Acting on impulse, he invited Eleanor to sit for a brief game, assuming it would be light-hearted, a way to pass time while the rain slowed. Eleanor hesitated. She had learned long ago to keep that part of herself hidden, to avoid questions and expectations. But something in Richard's demeanor felt different, not condescending, just curious. She agreed, telling herself it was just a game. As the pieces began to move, the air between them shifted. Eleanor played carefully at first, masking her instincts, but Richard's aggressive opening forced her hand. Muscle memory took over. Years of study, sacrifice, and unfulfilled potential flowed through her fingertips. Move by move, the balance changed. Richard leaned forward, his confidence slowly unraveling as he realized he was no longer in control. This was not luck. This was mastery. Other patrons began to notice. Conversations faded. Coffee cooled untouched. Eleanor's face remained calm, but inside, emotions surged. She had forgotten what it felt like to be seen for who she truly was. When the final move landed, silence filled the cafe. Richard stared at the board, stunned, not by defeat, but by revelation. In that moment, wealth meant nothing. Titles meant nothing. He had just been outplayed by someone the world had overlooked. The game ended without celebration. Eleanor returned to work, bracing herself for embarrassment or ridicule. Instead, Richard remained seated, deeply shaken. He asked questions, not about her job, but about her journey, her choices, the dreams she had buried to survive. Eleanor spoke honestly, without self-pity. She explained how talent alone was never enough, how circumstances could quietly erase even the brightest futures. Over the following weeks, Richard returned to the cafe often. Not to play, but to listen. He learned about Eleanor's sacrifices, her mother's passing, the nights spent studying by borrowed light, the scholarship she never accepted because responsibility came first. He saw in her what he had lost in himself, the hunger to grow without ego. Richard offered help, but not charity. He connected Eleanor with mentors, tournaments, and opportunities she had long believed were gone forever. He respected her pride, allowing her to choose her path without pressure. Slowly, Eleanor began competing again, her confidence rebuilding with each match. Losses taught her resilience. Victories reminded her of who she was. The chess world took notice. A waitress with no recent record was defeating seasoned players across the country. Articles followed. Interviews came. But Eleanor remained grounded, never forgetting where she came from or the cafe that had sheltered her during the hardest years of her life. Richard, too, changed. He reduced his public presence, focusing less on wealth and more on purpose. Supporting Eleanor's journey forced him to confront his own emptiness, to understand that success without meaning was just another form of poverty. Their bond was not romantic, but deeply human, built on respect, humility, and shared growth. 1 year later, Eleanor stood in a packed tournament hall in New York, representing her country, her past no longer something to hide. Richard watched quietly from the crowd, not as a benefactor, but as a witness to what happens when talent is finally given room to breathe. The final match was intense, every move echoing years of struggle and sacrifice. When Eleanor claimed victory, the applause was thunderous, but the real triumph was invisible. She had reclaimed herself. Just before this story ends, take a moment to comment below and share your thoughts. Tell us whether you believe hidden talent deserves a second chance, and how kindness has changed your own life. And if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that greatness can exist quietly and still change the world when given a chance, please like, share, and engage with this video. Your support helps keep stories of hope, humility, and resilience alive. Because sometimes, the greatest genius is not the one who wins the game, but the one who dares to play again when life has already declared checkmate.